Hello my dear friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Barbara and today we're going to be looking at Saturn in the first house. So this video is for you if you do have this placement. If you're a cross watcher, welcome as well. I do have a Saturn video that I've previously recorded all about Saturn transits, the karma, Saturn return, and what all of this means. So if you guys are interested in learning even more about Saturn, you guys can check out that video. It's going to be either in the description box below or in the comments. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. Saturn in the first house. So let's first look at what Saturn means, and then we're going to look at what the first house means, and then we're going to put it all together. So Saturn basically is all about restriction, rules, it's karma, and it's responsibility. So whatever house you have it in is the area of life that you're going to basically have these rules, restrictions, responsibilities, and the karma placed upon you. So for those of you who do have it in the first house does deal with the sign of Aries. Okay, this is all about the self. It's conjuncting your ascendant. So this is going to be a very, very tricky placement to have, okay? Because constantly you're going to have issues surrounding the self, the identity. For whatever reason, when you're growing up, there is a restriction that is placed on the self. You're not able to fully express yourself, who you truly are deep down inside. There might be a disconnect, okay, happening between who you truly are inside and how you're presenting yourself to the world. Because Saturn does deal with the father, if it's not the father, it's the most masculine role in your life, okay? So maybe the mother took on the masculine role, maybe the roles were reversed, or maybe there was somebody else, okay, within the family line who took on that masculine role. That is who you're going to look toward to see this individual, what kind of restriction did they place upon you, because then this later on is going to translate into other authorities within your life and issues that you may have with them, because there's constantly this energy of like the soul wants to express, okay? The soul wants to be seen. It wants to be in that Aries energy. Energy is all about go-getting, you know, being sometimes impulsive, but in a positive sense, okay? Going after your goals, going after your dreams, but sometimes they can fall into the shadow aspects where they are overly impulsive. So it's kind of like you have to almost look at this energy as being repressed. It's being suppressed within you. It's not allowed to be expressed for whatever reason. And you might find yourself that you're constantly put into situations where this energy is being suppressed. So it could be something like, you know, a manager doesn't give you that management position that you want. It could be something like this. They see you as a threat, even though you do have this ultimate potential, but it's almost like you don't see it within yourself. A lot of the time, people who do have Saturn in the first house are constantly going to be fixing themselves. The whole lesson here with Saturn in the first is to basically go on a soul searching journey. Figure out who you truly are deep down inside, what your wants, needs, and desires are, because it's kind of like, again, the true self, okay, the soul self, okay, that's the true self within, wasn't allowed to be expressed, okay? That's the whole thing here. It's all about the self. So it's kind of like, because it wasn't allowed to be expressed, anytime you are in circumstances with authority figures, whether it's parents, whether it is the law, whether it is your teachers, whether it's instructors, whether it's your managers, whatever, however it manifests within your life, you're always going to have some sort of friction here, okay? Because it's kind of like the soul remembers. That's the thing where it's like, you might consciously not be aware of this, but on a soul level, it's kind of like you do subconsciously remember maybe when you were a child and you weren't allowed to express the self, okay? There could be an energy of this where it's like, maybe you even had a father that was very much, again, domineering, assertive, okay? Maybe the father was very like competitive even with the kids, okay? There could even be an energy of this where it's like almost narcissistic in that sense. So it's kind of like you almost feel like you're always, you know, being suppressed when you have that Saturn in the first house is really what's happening. So it's kind of like a matter of really breaking out of that shell, allowing yourselves to shine. And it's like, it's something that's going to happen over an extended period of time, because Saturn does reward you for putting in the work. So the more work that you guys do on the self in a positive sense, okay, not becoming hyper-focused, okay, because there's a shadow aspect of this where it's like, you know, there's an energy where it's like you don't feel like maybe you physically look good enough. You might constantly change the way that you look. You might go on diets. You might go on like intense fitness journeys to like be fit and all these things. But it's like the whole thing to understand here is it's a soul level thing, okay? That's the karma here. It's like working on the internal aspects of the self. A lot of the time when we are trying to fix the external and hyper focus on that, don't get me wrong, being healthy is very good and going to the gym and all these things, but it's like when you're hyper focused on being like, I have to be the best, you know, looking version of myself, and then I'm gonna get that thing, and then I'm gonna get that thing. It's kind of like you're fixing an external issue for an internal problem. So it's kind of like you guys have to really explore within the self, like going on like deep journeys and being like, okay, what are my flaws? What are the things I have to integrate within myself? Okay, how am I not expressing myself in this situation? Like these types of things. And that's really what's going to help you guys really get to that point of expression that you're seeking. Because what I find with Saturn is kind of like there is the internal desire, okay, that's going on. So for you guys with Saturn in the first house, the internal desire really is to be seen, to be number one, to be the best, to be acknowledged for this, the recognition. You guys could even be interested in athletics, maybe being an athlete of some sort, or whatever it is, right? But it's like you have the secret desire. I don't even want to call it secret. You might not even be aware that it's there, right? To be these things, but it's like then you're not able to express it because you're being constantly suppressed, okay? And this probably comes from childhood, most of the time connected to the father. If it's not the father, whoever was in the masculine leaning energy. So that's the whole thing to understand here. Saturn really does reward you in the long term, okay? So it's like the more that you do work on yourself, it's going to then allow you to shine in that area, whatever sign that you do have your Saturn in, because that's kind of like the ascendant, okay? Because that's what the first house is, it's the ascendant. So it's kind of like how you're presenting yourself to the world. Most of the time is going to be suppressed in one way, shape, or form. And then there might be this disconnect for people who know you, because they're kind of like, okay, you're presenting yourself this way, but this is how you truly are on a soul level. So what's going on here? You know what I mean? So it's like, it's all to do with the self, the karma that you're clearing. The karma is all about the identity and self-expression and being able to finally express and like basically release yourself out of these chains, okay, that have been placed upon you is really what that is. Because otherwise you're always going to encounter issues, because it's like, it's happening subconsciously. That's the whole thing here. It's happening subconsciously, where it's like you want to express, you want to put yourself out there, right? You want to be seen, you want to be heard, but you can't because it's like someone suppressed you. So it's like you'll always find yourself in situations where it's like you don't get along with your manager. If you get into some sort of argument with them, you might want to switch your job, or you might have issues with the law. Okay, this placement could have these issues because again, it's like, it's just like subconsciously reminding you of this, like you don't want to be suppressed, right? So it's like, okay, maybe this did take place when you were growing up. Maybe the aspect of the self was suppressed, but it's like, now what can you do to work on this is really what it is. Okay, it's really going to be a matter of work. I do find, because of the fact that we are in higher frequencies now, I do find that people are healing sooner, okay, because they're less resistant to their lessons in life. So the more, you know, that you accept that there is something that's going on and that you have to work on it, and that there's lessons that are being shown to you and all these sorts of things, if you accept it sooner, it usually clears up around the first Saturn return. If not, you continue going through the cycles, and then it might repeat around your second Saturn return, where it's kind of like, I find a lot of the time, if you don't accept the lesson around the first Saturn return, by the time the second Saturn return comes around, it's like even more intense, and it's like even more in your face, where it's like, hey, like we really need to work on this, okay? We really need to work on this situation. You really need to go on some soul searching level, you know? And it's like, you might notice that people who maybe have this placement around their second Saturn return go off, and it's like they leave everything behind. They go through this whole like regenesis of the self, where it's like they go on like an eat, pray, love type of trip, where it's like they're really searching for the self. The sooner you learn these lessons, the sooner you integrate them, it's easier, because then you can get the rewards of Saturn, which for you guys is to be, as I mentioned, recognized, is to be basically in that number one position, the leadership position, and basically to be celebrated for who you guys truly are deep down inside, because this is something that wasn't allowed, okay, allowed in your life. For whatever reason, you guys were suppressed, you guys were pushed down, you guys were, you know, and it makes the person feel very insecure is really what that is, because it's like you're in this constant battle of it, of like, this is what I truly am, and it's like you might shut down those aspects of yourself that make you you, and it's like this is going to affect maybe your successes in life as well, because it's like the successes are closely tied into who you truly are as a person deep down inside, and being authentically who you are. That's really what that is. And it's like, it's suppressed, okay? So it's like you guys may have taken on this other version of yourself that you guys feel it might be accepted. That still leads to unhappiness, because it's like you're not going with the truth of what's truly going on inside. That's the whole thing here. There's always going to be issues around the self, the identity, expressing yourself, expressing who you truly are deep down inside, and all these sorts of things. But if you do eventually express, okay, whatever's going on inside, you will be rewarded. That's the whole thing with Saturn. It's like it rewards you in the long run, okay? So this is my quick little video on Saturn in the first house. I do hope that you guys did enjoy it. If you did, please do like, share, and subscribe. And I hope you all have a beautiful rest of the day.